I have taken well over 1,000 fitness sales calls the last few years, and in this video, I'm going to explain what I used to do wrong, the mistakes I used to make, and the mistakes I see coaches making to this day who are in my mentorship when they first start out. Now, for anyone that doesn't know me, my name is Darrell Larry. I'm the owner of Excel Mentorship, the leading business mentorship to help fitness coaches get to 10K per month and beyond. I myself ran a very successful PT company, an in-person PT company, a very successful online fitness coaching company, and now I run Excel Mentorship, where we help coaches scale to 10K per month and beyond. But before I get into the mistakes people make, how to manage objections, and everything else you need to know about how to take a sales call, I just want to start off by saying I was in the exact same position as every coach starting out when I first started doing sales calls. I was absolutely terrible at them. I was a very good coach, a very good PT, but when it came to selling myself, I always used to sell myself short. Okay, I used to hate managing objections. Someone would say to me, "Oh, I can't afford it." I'd be like, "Ah, no problem. Whenever you can, let me know." Or I need to speak to my partner. "Oh, no worries. Let me know what she says." Okay, I was absolutely terrible at them. I didn't like being pushy. I didn't like being too salesy. And again, what I want to reiterate is you actually don't have to be. Sales is all about asking the right questions, selling on results, selling on emotion. And when you're selling a good service, you're actually doing the prospect a favor by pushing them a small bit. Okay. Now, the way I got better at sales before I get into all the mistakes, so on and so forth, is again, repetition. The more sales calls you do, the better you will get. But there are certain things that you need to do to be successful at them. The way I got better at them as well was getting feedback. Okay, I was in a lot of mentorship groups. Okay, I always got feedback on my sales calls, where I could improve, how to manage objections better, how to start the call, the pre-frame, how to close calls, so on and so forth. But even before I got into mentorships, and I was about 2021, I was sick and tired of people booking in for calls and me not being able to sign them up due to my lack of sales skills. So even at that point, before I started paying mentors, I was reading a lot of sales book, even ones like How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is good at teaching how to communicate properly. People Never Split the Difference is another good one. The other good one as well is Spin Selling, okay, by Neil something. What's his second name? Can't remember his second name off the top of my head, but it's a very, very good book. Even The Way of the Wolf by Jordan Belfort is really, really good too. And they did help me a small bit at the start. However, of course, they're not very aligned with fitness. And again, some of them are very, very pushy, very, very sales, like The Way of the Wolf. Again, Jordan Belfort, you all probably know him, The Wolf of Wall Street, the movie. He had good tactics in terms of, getting people over the line and what to say, so on and so forth. But a lot of it was very, very pushy. And I often think as well, the more aggressively you push, the more people kind of go away from you, because once someone smells desperation off you, they're gone. The deal's done. Okay. The goal with your sales calls needs to be to make the person realize they need your help and basically get them to sell the program to you by making them open up about why they want to be shaped, their pain points, their struggles, so on and so forth. And I'm going to explain exactly how to do that in this video, but I just want to get that point across. I was terrible at sales, and I wasn't until I got experience in the trenches, read some books, but most importantly, actually got feedback on my sales calls from people who were way better than me, and then actually taking that feedback on board and implementing it. Okay, and now I consider myself very, very skilled at sales. I've had 3 multi-six-figure businesses the last few years, and you don't get that without being somewhat good at sales, if I do say so myself. Now, before I get into actually how to start sales calls, what questions to ask, how to get them to open up to you, how to manage objections, a very important thing we also need to talk about is how to actually get the person to show up onto consult calls, because I speak to coaches every single day of the week, and a lot of the times they tell me things like, "Oh, I had a call booked in, they didn't show up," so on and so forth. So we also need to ensure we have a system in place to ensure when we are getting people booked in for sales calls or consultation calls, whatever you want to call it, that we actually get them to show up. And there's a few things here that you need to do. So the first and most easiest thing that you need to do is send them email and text reminders when they book in for a call, 24 hours before the call, and also 1 hour before the call. So when they book in, let's say via Calendly, You can set it up to where they get a reminder 24 hours before the call and 1 hour before. As I said there, it's a very, very simple thing to do. You can literally set it up via Calendly. But also, what I'd make sure to do, because again, that's good, but it's not enough. The second thing I'd make sure you're doing to actually ensure people do show up to your calls is every single night, look at your calendar the next day, see who you have booked in for consultation calls, and send them a personalized message. What I like to do is I'll pick up my phone, I'll send them a video saying, hey, John, really looking forward to our call. Tomorrow we're going to go over your number one goal, your biggest struggle, and I'm going to provide a strategy I feel would help you get to your goal. Really looking forward to it. Chat to you tomorrow. And that personalized message massively increases the show up rate because, for one, you're going the extra mile and they notice that. Most importantly, number two, they'll almost feel obliged to show up because, again, you went to the effort of sending them that video and then they'll be like, okay, I'm definitely going to show up to the call now. So 2 things straight away that you need to do to improve your show up rate is that. Okay, so now that we got the person to actually show up to the call and we have somewhat of a chance of closing them, we need to now make sure we go onto that call prepared. And by prepared, I mean knowing how to start the call, knowing what questions to ask, knowing how to close a call, and also knowing how to manage objections. With no matter what you're selling, you're always going to get some objections. With fitness coaching, there's only 4 that you'll really get. And in my opinion, they're actually very easy to manage once you know how to do it. Okay, the only 4 you'll really get is financial. I can't afford it. Number 2 is time. They feel they don't have the time. Number 3 is spousal. They'd speak to their partner. And number 4 is I need to think about it, which is just a smokescreen really, and them not wanting to tell you the real objection, which is actually very easy to manage as well. But I'm actually going to cover how to manage all these objections at the end of the video. So how do we start a sales call? How you start a sales call is extremely important. I can literally dictate whether the person signs up or not. I review all of my client sales calls, and when they first start, they all make the same mistake. They spend too long breaking the ice and end up getting friend zoned. And the issue with that is people don't buy from them friends, they buy from coaches and people they trust have the solution to their problem. So how you start the call is extremely important. Don't waste time talking about things like the weather that you don't care about, the prospect doesn't care about. So when you get on the call, I like to run through a pre-frame. And what I say for the pre-frame is, hey, John, it's great to get on the call with you today. On today's call, we're going over your current situation, your number one goal, and your biggest struggle. And I'm going to explain a game plan I feel would help you get there. And if all is a good fit, by the end of the call, I'm going to make you an offer to be part of my coaching program. And if not is a good fit, if not all is a good fit, I'll point you in the direction of someone I think will be able to help you. Sound good? He'll then say, yes, sounds good. But most importantly, you now have authority over the conversation. He respects your time, so puts you in a much better position to actually close the call. And most importantly, you didn't get friend zoned and you have a chance of closing the sale. Because with John there, it's not about losing the 10 kilo, it's the feeling he's currently having. The reason he's on the call right now is because, again, he's sick and tired of what he sees in the mirror, okay, and he wants to solve that problem. So we now have his core pain point. Once we do a good job then of opening up the call, gaining authority and not getting friend zoned, the next thing we're going to do is go into the prospect's pain points. The question I ask is, John, what would you say your number one struggle is with your fitness right now? He will then tell us what his number one struggle is. So for example, let's say he says, I struggle with my diet and I want to lose 10 kilo. The question we'll ask from there then is, how long has he been struggling with this for? He will then open up and tell us how long it's been. So for example, let's say he says 1 year. We'll then respond with something like, wow, 1 year, that's a very long time. Out of curiosity, John, why is now the right time to solve this issue? Like, why did you choose to get on the call now with me? He will then open up, okay, and tell us his core pain point on why he needs to solve this issue now. So for example, let's say he says something along the lines of, sick and tired of looking myself in the mirror, I'm not happy with what I see. If we can get him to open up about that and tell us why he needs to solve this issue now, 9 times out of 10, we will close them. Always make sure you don't rush through these questions and always ask expansive questions as well. So for example, when he said that, if we could even say, could you expand on that? What do you mean by that? So on and so forth, and get him to really open up and really explain to us why he's on that call right now, nine times out of 10, we will close him. From there, then, the next question we're going to ask is, why do you need to take action right now? And why did you choose me? What this is going to do is create a sense of urgency in the prospect's mind, and also feel like they're selling themselves into the program rather than you selling them. Then once they explain that and they answer that question, we'll say, perfect, John, completely understand. What would you say your number one goal is you'd like to achieve from my coaching program in the next 12 weeks, let's say? And let's say he says, I'd love to lose 10 kilo to feel confident going on my summer holidays. We will then ask him, how would achieving that goal make you feel? He will then open up and tell us how good it will feel to get to his goal. Then the key from there is actually getting them to imagine how they will feel. I will always do this on a consult call. So for example, let's say John said to me, he wants to lose 10 kilo and he wants to feel confident on his holidays. And he said he'd feel great if he gets there. What I will say is, John, what I want you to imagine now is 12 weeks down the line, you're 10 kilos down, you're going on your holidays, you're feeling confident, you're top off, the abs are showing. How good will that make you feel? Okay, he'll then open up like, oh, that would be amazing, whatever it may be. So now we're actually getting him to imagine how good he'll feel if he does take action and get to his goal. Then we also want to expand on that beyond the holiday. So what I would ask him then, and what other areas of your life would improve? Your work life, your family life, your social life, your relationships, so on and so forth. So really getting him to open up on how he needs to make this change and how him losing that 10 kilo will benefit his life. Then what we're going to do from there is instill belief in his mind. So for example, what I will always say is, brother, if I'm being completely honest, that's a very, very realistic goal for you. Now that we know their pain point and their goal, we want to create the gap between them and their goal. So the question I always ask is, why haven't you got to that goal right now on your own? What's stopping you from achieving this goal on your own? And what we're going to do from there is instill belief in his mind. So for example, what I will always say is, brother, if I'm being completely honest, that's a very, very realistic goal for you. Now that we know their pain point and their goal, we want to create the gap between them and their goal. So the question I always ask is, why haven't you got to that goal right now on your own? What's stopping you from achieving this goal on? This will help make the prospect feel like they need our help. And then I always like to play devil's advocate. Okay, and again, what this is going to do is make them even realize further that they need our help and they need to take action right now. So what I will always say next is, let's say, John, we fast forward to 12 weeks, you didn't take action, you didn't get to your goal, you weren't feeling confident in your holidays. How would that make you feel? Then he's going to say something like, oh, that'd be awful, I wouldn't know what to think, whatever it may be. So now we're instilling further that he needs our help and he needs to take action right now. Next part of the call then is the fitness assessment. Never do this at the start of a call, because again, the most important part of the call is finding out their core pain point, finding out their goal, creating urgency in their mind, finding out how it's going to benefit their life, how they'll feel if they don't take action, so on and so forth. So the next part of the call is the part I like to call the fitness assessment. So what we're going to simply do is ask them the question, what their current training and nutrition / lifestyle looks like. Then once they explain to us what it looks like, we'll briefly explain where they're going wrong, and what we will do to solve those issues. So for example, let's say he says, oh, I'm not really tracking my calories, I'm eating out a lot, I'm really busy at work, I train maybe twice per week and it's mainly cardio. We'll then say something like, okay, John, no wonder you're not happy with the way you look. Your habits aren't the best at the minute. So the first thing we're going to do is get a nutrition plan that's easy to follow and fits within your lifestyle, and get a training plan in place so you're actually building muscle while losing body fat and not doing too much cardio. That will lead to you having the lean, strong physique that you want and losing the 10 kilos. And I'm always going to keep you accountable the whole way through. Okay, so we're briefly explaining where he's going wrong and what we're going to do to solve the issue. Then once we get that done, an extremely important question to ask is, on a scale of 1 to 10, John, how urgent would you say you are about making this change right now? And what I would say is anything less than a 10 is a bit of a red flag, and you are definitely going to get some objections. So for example, if he says to me anything less than 10, so he says 8 or 9, I'll simply ask him the question, why isn't it a 10 out of 10? Okay. He'll then say something like, oh, I just have to weigh up the cost of the program, or whatever objection he has in his head. And what I would say then is, I'm not talking about my program. I'm talking about how urgent are you about achieving your goals? Because again, I only work with committed people. And if you're not willing to give 10 out of 10 effort, it's not going to work. So I'll ask you the question again, on a scale of 1 to 10, how urgent are you about getting to your goal of losing 10 kilos, feeling, looking your best on the holidays, improving your confidence, improving your relationships, improving your social life, so on and so forth? Then he'll say something like, well, when you put it like that, it's a 10 out of 10. I'd say, perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Program details are going to keep this very, very brief. This is one of the biggest mistakes coaches make, which ruins their calls. They spend way too long talking about the features of the program rather than what we're doing right now and the lead up to this, selling on results and emotion. So when you're explaining the program, something along the lines of tailored training, tailored nutrition, okay, constant accountability, weekly check-ins, and guaranteed results once you're willing to follow the program. Once you go over the program details, then you're simply going to ask John the question, John, does this sound like something you need right now? And that will get you to your goal. Then once they say yes, don't go straight in and drop the price of the program. What we're going to do next is ask them 2 questions, okay? The next question we're going to ask is, what part of the program do you feel you need the most right now? And then once they answer that, we're then going to ask them, why is that the most important part you need right now? What this does, it gets them to basically sell the program to us rather than us selling to them. Then once you get out of the way, we'll now go into the pricing. And this is a part so many coaches struggle with, okay, but it's really not that difficult. So from there, we'll simply say, perfect, John, by the sounds of it, I think you'd be a great fit for my program. I know for certain I can get to your goal if you're willing to commit. The only thing we've left to talk through is the pricing and duration of my program. Okay, so what I'd like to do, John, is work in 12-week blocks. Okay, because I want to guarantee we do get to your result. If you're to hire a PT for 12 weeks, it costs you anywhere in the region of 2,000 to 3,000 euros. Okay, however, for my coaching program, it comes with nutrition, it comes with accountability, it comes with training, which doesn't come with a personal training service, unfortunately. And the price for my coaching program is $999 for 12 weeks. What I've done there is I leveraged the price of PT to make my online coaching seem more affordable, because it is. And let's say then it doesn't go as well as we thought. Okay, let's presume the worst. And he says, oh, that's a bit out of my budget. We will then simply say, completely understand, John, it can be a big investment. However, if I was to ask you, let's say you did commit for the 12 weeks and you got to your goal of losing the 10 kilo, you were feeling, looking your best on holidays, you had the abs out, would you consider the investment worth it? He will then say, yes, I would definitely consider the investment worth it. Okay. What we'll simply do then is, listen, I wouldn't like finance to be the only reason you don't get started and get to your goal. And I wouldn't usually do this. However, if you do something to my program, you fully commit and you don't get to your goal of losing the 10 kilo, feeling your best on holidays, I will send you 100% of the money back. So there's no risk your end. And that would usually get them over the line. However, if they don't say yes to that and they still genuinely can't afford the program, we will then downsell them. So the first downsell I would do would be a split payment. So I'd say, okay, John, again, I don't want finance to be the only reason you don't get started and achieve your goals, because again, I could tell you really want it. How does this sound? We'll break up the pricing into 2. You pay 500 month 1 and 500 month 2. That way you can get started, start seeing results, and it's not as much of an investment at the start. Okay? Then he'll either say yes, or he'll still say, oh, it's still a bit out of my budget. Then we'll simply downsell to a monthly rolling subscription of, let's say, 250 euros per month. And again, that will get him over the line. And if it doesn't, unfortunately, he seemed like someone that can't be helped. But that's exactly how I'd manage a sales call, how I'd start it, okay, what questions I'd ask, and also how I'd close the call. And again, that framework has worked for me a lot. Okay, I've closed over a thousand people for fitness coaching, and I've helped my clients close a lot of people too. And again, when you follow a framework like that and you focus on selling on results and emotion, not features, you ask the right questions, you know how to manage objections, you will close more often than not, especially with something like fitness coaching, which is something that people need. Okay, so I kind of briefly explained how to manage the finance objection, okay, just there. But as I said there towards the start of the call, I'm also going to explain how to manage the other three objections. So outside financial, the next one is time. So let's say, for example, someone said to me, I don't have time to commit to the program. I'd simply ask them the question, do you want this change to be long lasting? Then they're going to, of course, say yes. What I'd simply say then is you need to learn to manage it in your busy times. Otherwise, it's always going to presume that when busy times come up again, you go back to square one and falling back into old habits. And also with my program, I'm going to design it with a time efficient approach to your training, a time efficient approach to your nutrition, okay, and you will get to your goal. That would usually squash the time objection fairly easily. The next one then is I need to speak to my partner, okay? What you're going to do there is simply ask him the question, what do you feel your partner wouldn't approve of? He will then open up and tell us the real objection he feels his partner is going to give. Usually that would be financial, and you just manage that how you manage any other financial objection, like I just done there at the end of the sample sales call. Okay, but let's say he's adamant on speaking to his partner. We'd simply say, absolutely no problem at all. How about we do this, John? Okay, I've had people say this a lot, and a lot of the time they'll actually get the green light from their partner, but they'll still not go out the program because they have the fear of starting themselves. And I don't want you to be one of those people. How about we secure a €100 deposit right now? We'll book a follow-up call for 48 hours time, and we can go over it then and see what your partner had to say. Okay. Then at the very least, we're going to deposit at a follow-up call, even if he is adamant on speaking to his partner. The next one then is I need to think about it. And again, that's just a smoke screen. That's not a real objection. They're covering up the real objection. So I'd simply ask him the question, may I ask John what you feel you need to think about? Okay. He will then open up and tell us the real objection. Again, most of the time is probably going to be financial. So again, you just manage that how you'd manage any other finance objection. And again, that should get him over the line. But again, if he's adamant, he genuinely needs to think about it. Okay. What you simply do in that scenario is take a deposit and book a follow-up call to secure his commitment. Because again, if someone paid your deposit, they're not just going to part ways with it. Okay. And again, if someone's not willing to pay you a deposit, realistically, they're not that serious. Okay. But again, that's exactly how I'd start a sales call, what questions I'd ask, how to close a sales call, so on and so forth. And again, I have a lot of experience with this, and I hope you took some value from it. Make sure to like this video, comment if you took some value from it, and also make sure you subscribe because I'm posting daily videos here to help people like you scale your coaching business.